Have you ever felt like you were in a game? If we accept that life exists in the fiction of a game, how is it that why do some people lose in this game as they progress level by level? This book reminded me once again that life is actually a kind of game, and those who know the rules of this game usually get what they want. It's called a power game. Some of this may not be moral, but it's still good to know. Because, as you can appreciate, not everyone has good intentions. It's a double-edged sword. Some people use power for good, others for evil. There's an incredible allure to having power. To be in control, to be respected, or who knows, to make people fear you. To provide. The question is, do you know the rules and are you playing to win? In the 48 Laws of Power, Robert Greene explains the rules of this power game one by one with historical examples. Manipulations that will teach you how to outsmart your opponents and become a master player. I highly recommend you to buy and read this book. Of the 48 laws mentioned in the book, we will focus on the 5 that I consider important. If you want to know the rest of the secrets, you have to hit the like button for me to understand. Enough. Let's dig a little deeper. Rule 1. Never outshine the master. This law is essentially about knowing your place. Always try to save your talent for your superiors. If you try to show that you are smarter, your master, will feel insecure. Powerful people want to be the center of attention. Trying too hard to impress them takes the attention away from them and onto you, and can hurt their pride in the process. But even worse is trying to act superior to them. This can make your boss see you as a threat to their position. If this happens, they may try to remove you from your position altogether. The relationship between King Louis XIV of France and Nicolas Fouquet, the king's finance minister, is a good example. Fouquet throws a lavish party to impress the king and become prime minister. Here he shows off his power and tries to show how powerful his connections are. However, this has the opposite effect, and the day after the party, Fouquet is arrested by order of the king. Because the king, instead of being impressed, was afraid of this show of power and accused him of theft in order to eliminate him. The opposite example is Galileo's tactic. Galileo needs funding to continue his research, and he comes up with an ingenious idea to get it. When Galileo discovered the 4 moons of Jupiter, he linked his discovery to the ascension of the Medici family, and he declares it a cosmic event, heralding the rise of the family, but in a flamboyant way, interpreting this discovery as a celestial omen confirming the greatness of the family, his patron. To tickle his ego, Galileo gets what he wants. He becomes an official philosopher and mathematician. He no longer has to beg anyone for funding. So, instead of overshadowing your superiors, give them the limelight. Make your superiors look superior and smarter than you, for example. Ask them for help and attribute your ideas to their great advice. When it comes to power, to outshine the master is perhaps the biggest mistake of all. Rule 2. Friend or foe? Be careful with your friends. Yes, it may seem a bit unemotional, but unfortunately there are many bad examples in history or in your life. The reason is simple. Your friends are likely to compare themselves to you, and therefore jealous of what you have. So the wisest course of action is to keep your distance. Most Chinese emperors were regularly murdered by their closest friends whom they appointed as generals. Emperor Song, aware of this treacherous potential, took a different tack. In 959 he invited his generals, all his friends, to a banquet. Offering them estates and riches, he lured them all to his palaces. In this way, Sung was able to rule for another 16 years, which had not been possible until then. But who will you work with if you alienate your friends? It may seem a bit strange, but the best idea is that if you hire someone who was once your enemy, you can be sure that they will be more loyal than a friend, because they will have a lot to prove to you. Often we don't know our friends as well as we think we do, and unpleasant behavior is often covered up so as not to damage the friendship. Make friends with your friends, but work with those who are resourceful and competent. And your enemies are an unexplored gold mine that you must learn to exploit. Moreover, the most effective way to destroy an enemy is to make friends with him. The problem with working with friends is that the boundaries of what the work entails get confused. If 2 friends or partners understand the dangers involved, only then can it be useful to hire a friend. Nothing is constant in the field of power, and even your closest friends can become your worst enemies. Rule 3. Persuade with actions, not arguments. Any momentary victory you think you have won by arguing is in reality an empty victory. The resentment and ill will you cause is more powerful. It is much more effective to get others to agree with you through your actions without saying a word. Show, don't explain. As Michelangelo was making the final corrections on his famous statue of David, Mayor Soderini of Florence entered the studio. Considering himself an expert, he examines the giant work. He tells Michelangelo that although the work is magnificent, his nose is a little big. Michelangelo realizes that Soderini is standing just below the giant figure and does not have a proper perspective. Michelangelo does not enter into an argument with Soderini. Reaching the nose, he takes his chisel along with a piece of marble dust from the planks. While Soderini is watching him a meter or two below, Michelangelo gently touches the statue with the chisel. He starts tapping and dropping the dust from his hand little by little. In fact, he does nothing to change the nose, he appears to be working on it. After a few minutes of this contrived behavior, he steps aside and gives Soderini the little. "Now look," he says, bringing it closer to the statue. "That's better," Soderini replies. "You've given it life." Michelangelo knew that by changing the statue's nose, he could ruin the whole look. But Soderini was a client who prided himself on his aesthetic judgment. Offending such a man would have gained Michelangelo nothing. Moreover, it could jeopardize his future work. He was too smart to argue with him. His solution was only to change Soderini's perspective by bringing him a little closer to the statue. He did this without realizing that the cause was misperception. Michelangelo both protected his sculpture and convinced Soderini with his action. This is the double power of winning with action rather than argument. Nobody is offended and your point is proven. The problem with getting something by arguing is that the people you are arguing with, you can never be sure how they are affected. They may seem to agree with you in a polite way, but on the inside they may be angry with you. Perhaps something you said has irrevocably offended them. In an argument, even the best argument has no solid foundation. From this point of view, words are cheap. We all know that in the heat of the argument anything will be said to support our claim. Truth is often seen, rarely heard. Rule 4. When you ask for help, appeal to people's interests, not their compassion. If you want to have power or achieve something, you need the help of others. You need help. How you ask for help is very important. Of course, you can ask people to help you out of the goodness of their hearts. But it would be a mistake to act solely on that basis. Appeal to the self-interest of the people you are asking for help. Tell them something that will benefit them if they form an alliance with you and emphasize it. When he sees something to be gained for himself, he is likely to respond with enthusiasm. Even the most powerful person is trapped in their own needs, and if you don't appeal to someone else's self-interest, they will see you as a waste of time. Self-interest is a lever to move people to action. Train yourself to think in the other person's mind, to see their needs and interests. Don't get trapped only in your own feelings. Some people find it offensive to have their interests addressed. Although interests are often considered, some people are not approached out of self-interest. They don't want to be seen as acting just for their own benefit. They want to show that they have a good heart. You have to distinguish this difference and find out what makes them tick. Appeal to their self-interest when they are smoldering with ambition. Appeal to their benevolence when they want to look good. Your focus should be on what makes them tick. Rule 5. Always say less than necessary. When you are trying to influence people, the more you say, the more ordinary you'll be seen. This makes you lose control. At the same time, the more likely you are to say something stupid or dangerous. Power is in many ways the game of image. When you say less than you should, you inevitably end up looking bigger and better than you are. You appear powerful. People are machines of interpretation and explanation. They want to know what you think. Powerful people say little. Silence makes your interlocutors uncomfortable. People want to know what you think. Be especially careful with sarcasm. Sarcastic remarks may give momentary satisfaction. However, you may regret this short satisfaction compared to the price you pay. When you are in a dialogue with someone, if at some point your interlocutor does not want to explain much and you are curious about it, try to remain silent at that time. Because this silence will make the other person uncomfortable and you will have to fill the void somehow. He'll ask, and he will probably reveal what he has been hiding. Of course, it is sometimes not wise to remain silent all the time. Silence is likely to arouse suspicion and mistrust, especially among your superiors.